You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Global Trade This Week. I'm Pete Mento, and with me is my good friend and colleague, Doug Draper. Doug, I can tell you're in California, buddy.
Yeah, the blank walls. Yes, I am in the great city of Fresno, California.
Yep.
Having a good time. Weather's great out here. Jeez, we talked about weather again. Can we just start this thing over?
No, we're going to keep it, buddy, because it's going to remind us when we hear it again that we got to stop doing that. Yeah. I'm in Plymouth. I'm in Plymouth, Michigan, where I'm giving a seminar tomorrow for DSV at a wonderful hotel. However, as I mentioned before, Doug, I don't have a window in my hotel room, which it doesn't seem to bother me. I don't know. I close the curtains and open the curtains. No window, no problem. I'm okay.
Yeah. What they didn't tell you is that every other room in the hotel opens up to birds, blue sky, and green trees, yeah. And they're like, Mentos here. Stick them on the inside.
They saw me coming, dude. Yeah, they gave me the room, with a concrete floor with a drain in the middle and a cot. Yeah, when they saw me coming.
That's right.
Well, we have some great topics, bud. We have some excellent topics. So why don't you go ahead and kick us off, amigo?
Yeah, we'll put this one on speed cycle, the show, what I mean by then. So there's something that popped out to me, Pete. World population projections in 2070, 2070. And I'm like, yeah, usual suspects. It's one of those deals that's going to draw you in. I don't know if it's clickbait or what, maybe close to it. And there was one country on there that I was like, whoa, wait, what? Hold on, where did that come from? So here's the top five. And I'm going to leave number 3 out. So number 1's India, number 2's China, 1.7 billion for India, 1.05 for China. Pakistan's number 4, 440 million, and then the USA's at 386. The third one, Nigeria, right? I was, and maybe I'm naive and not following. I think that we're pretty dialed in with global trade. I'm like, what? Nigeria? Their population is skyrocketing right now. And it got me interested to say, okay, what's going on in this country? It's still a long way away, but the trajectory on this thing, the bell curve is just through the roof, right? So here's a couple of statistics on Nigeria, Pete, and I'll get your read on it. So highest birth rate in the world. This is crazy. 50% of the population is under 19 years old. They are just cranking it, right? And so the other things that are going on there is that they're concerned about. So anyway, that's what's going on. There's a lot of kids being born. It's a young population. There's a lot of runway to have success or potential failure there, Pete. But here's some of the challenge, right? So what happens whenever the young start becoming a little bit more educated and look for something to challenge themselves a little bit more? Are the young going to leave? Right, that's a big deal. It's emerging. It's coming around, but as you know, in this day and age, if there's not opportunity in their country, there is a chance that they're going to leave. So that's a big concern. Is they're cranking out babies and that population is skyrocketing, but what happens if the support systems don't go there? The other thing, shocker on this, infrastructure. The 3 C's: congestion, capacity, and cost to. And I just made that up as far as the 3 C's go, as far as getting their ports and infrastructure set up, right? So here's 2 final comments, Pete. Number 1 is Lagos, their main city on the port, on the ocean. Lots of potential, lots of congestion, and the infrastructure is just horrible, right? So are the roads and the connectors that go into the port. But Nigeria is going to bet on, oh, by the way, let's have the Chinese come in and fund the growth of the port. It's the deep water port outside of Lagos. 75% of this project, it's like 1.5 billion, is supported, financed by the Chinese. So that is very interesting. The other piece that is interesting on this is like, okay, what's going on in Nigeria? What are they exporting? What are they making? So here's the top exports: crude petroleum, petroleum gas, fertilizers, refined petroleum, and let's kick in some gold for good measure. If you look at all of those, the top three of the top five: petroleum, petroleum, petroleum. So it's wrought for potential fraud. I don't know. It's crazy. The potential of this country is unbelievable. I didn't even see it on the radar. Is it similar to what China was decades ago? I don't know. I always say keep your, don't sleep on India. Nigeria is an interesting one. It could go one or two ways, right? Good or bad. Have you heard about Nigeria, Pete, or you have any take on everything I just said?
Oh yeah. So first, I'm really into demographic studies now as they relate to economics, and there are people that believe that China already has less than 1 billion people, but the general feeling amongst academics is that China will be the first country to have over 1 billion people and then under 1 billion people, and that has to do with birth rates, which you just discussed. The United States has a similar problem. Most Western economies have a problem with it. China's is particularly bad. In the US, we have about 1.9 children to 1.8 children, depending on the study, being born for every woman in America. We have to be at 2.2 to replace the people who die. So and our numbers appear to be declining in that younger people aren't having more kids. So what makes Nigeria one of the most fascinating places is it has some built-in infrastructure because of the Chinese, I think we talked about that beautiful new port there. It's gorgeous. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful state-of-the-art ports in the world right now because it's brand new and it was built by Chinese money. And China sees Africa, particularly that part of Africa, as America's version of China. It will be China's version of China to America. It's going to be a place with inexpensive, very easily available labor. And when you talk about energy, right, it's one of China's biggest problems is getting energy in order to keep up its production cycles. Well, energy will be a problem, unfortunately, for our friends in Nigeria. They need better power production, power plants, and ease electricity to get where they want to be as that massive exporter. The last thing I wanted to mention, I've been to Nigeria many times. It's a fascinating place. One of my most interesting cultural moments is being at dinner with 7 people, I think it was. When your phone rings in Nigeria, it's not rude to just pick it up and start talking. So you and I could be in the middle of a conversation and your phone would ring and you'd be like, yeah, what's going on? Like you wouldn't even say, excuse me, you just answer it, right? Because there might be money on the other side of that phone. So, they're very, very, very enterprising people. But corruption is a real problem in that entire part of Africa. And American companies have had a very difficult time managing that. Chinese companies don't care. So it is set up pretty well for that relationship with China. But let's not forget, much of that oil, much of the existing infrastructure, much of the oil exploration is being done by Western companies. It's being done by British and German and French and Dutch and American and Canadian companies. So, you got a little bit of one and the other here, pal.
Yeah.
But great take, Doug. Great take.
Yeah. It'll be interesting for sure. I hope they don't get taken advantage of with lots of opportunity. But anyway,
I think being taken advantage of is part of every country's growth projection, man.
Yeah, valid. Good way to end that topic. What do you got for yours?
Well, my first topic is about how now in the news cycle, we're starting to see more and more about possible punitive tariffs on China by Mr. Trump if he were to be reelected. And some of them are downright terrifying. So the first is a proposed 60% tariff on nearly everything from China. 60%. On top of that, additional tariffs. So imagine paying 60% on all steel and steel products, and then an additional 15% on top of that. So that goes for parts, finished goods. One of the really scary ones is 100% tariff on certain types of automobiles and automobile components, mostly focused on electric vehicles. So the U.S. labor movement is very concerned about flooding of cheap, which we've talked about, cheap electric cars coming into America without them taking the opportunity to sell these cars that they put so much research and development into. Both of these sound ridiculous, or all three of them. To someone who watches global trade, who pays attention to it. But a 25% tariff on about 40% of the entire HTS sounded ridiculous before President Trump's first term. Doug, I think if he's elected, that he's going to do it. So I've been telling everyone that will listen to me, be prepared for it. It's a coin toss. Coin toss plus 1%. I think it's more likely to happen than not happen, and people should be prepared for it because there is a legal way he can do it.
Yeah, so we dabble. We talk about not getting into politics, but we just kind of steered off the road. We got the one of those things called the rumble strips on the road. We just kind of hit that for a second there, Pete.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Don't do it, Doug. Don't do it, Doug.
Interesting topic, Pete.
Yeah, it's tough to talk about this without getting into politics, but I think just the factual side of it, how likely it is to happen. I think factually it's pretty likely if he were to be reelected. And I think factually as well, it would be detrimental to the overall health of the global economy. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I truly don't want to get into any of that or make any comments, so one way or another. So
fair enough.
All right, my man. We
your favorite
are
part,
zipping.
buddy?
I know we're zipping through the show. Halftime brought to us by Cap Logistics. Please check them out at caplogistics.com. They give us this opportunity every week to spend time with our listeners. And this is the time where we get off the rumble strip and we talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about for a few minutes. So, Pete, yours is kind of relevant for the timing, so I'll let you rip it.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's one of my favorite times of the year. It's the NBA and NHL playoffs. Fabulous time of year for both sports. It's more exciting. There's much more at stake. And I actually start to care about basketball, which I don't for most of the year. I always care about the NHL playoffs, but being a Bruins fan, I'm just expecting disappointment. But the two teams that people are expecting to make the finals are the Denver Nuggets and the Boston Celtics. Now, you and Keenan are Denver guys, and I don't know if you're Nuggets fans, but I think it would be a good idea for us to have a kind wager where, and I'm proposing, if whichever team makes it farthest, including if they both make it to the end, the loser has to buy the winner lunch. I think that's fair. So I didn't know if you guys were up to it or not. It's 2 against 1, but the odds are even. So I'd be happy. I'd always buy you guys lunch, but I think this would make it a little more painful if I lost it in a bet and you guys absolutely stuck it to me with a very expensive lunch. So are you two up for the bet? You can speak on behalf of Keenan. I mean, he's underage anyway, so he needs an adult to do it.
I'm all in. I'm all in, right? So a big basketball fan with the Nuggets, right? So Jayhawk by born and bred. My daughter's there. She's a rower, the whole 9 yards. So Christian Brown, if you ever follow that guy, is just kind of anyway. Love the Nuggets.
Does he play for the Nuggets?
Yeah, he plays with the Nuggets. Every once in a while, he'll have some amazing highlights. He had a couple of dunks the other night, posterizing Rudy Gobert, I think. Anyway, I'm all in. That's a great idea. And, if the Nuggets lose, $5 footlongs at Subway all day long, my friend.
Hell yeah, buddy. I'm in. A bet's a bet. All right, bud, hit me.
All right. Well, just kind of like you, it is officially music festival season. Coachella, which caught a wave a couple years ago, just got over. And so being in California, everybody's chirping about Coachella, yada, 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 best thing ever. But it kind of kicks off the season because it's down in Palm Springs. But I never understood. So here's a couple that are going on in case you want to make it, right? And some of these I've heard of, and some of them like, well, whatever. So Newport Jazz Festival, obviously I've heard of that one. Hopefully most of our listeners. Austin City Limits, different than South by Southwest, but that's coming around. See Here Now Festival, Asbury Park. It's kind of in your neck of the woods. Springsteen, Bon Jovi, Stone Pony, those kind of accounts. The Bonnaroo Music Festival in Manchester, Tennessee. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah, it's pretty popular.
Yeah, I don't even know where Manchester, Tennessee is, so I'm going to bypass that one. This one, one of my son's buddies drove to this thing, the Electric Forest in Rothbury, Michigan. I think it's an EDM show, and it's in the forest. It's in the Sherwood Forest, which I don't even know if that's real, but Yeah, that one's going to be pretty crazy. A lot of early 20s type of folks. Monterey Jazz Festival, we know that one. Island Hopping Songwrite Festival in Fort Myers. That's pretty much a Jimmy Buffett festival. CMA Fest, which is more country. The Bristol Rhythm Root Reunion, Bristol, Tennessee. Seems like Tennessee's got a lot of these things. And then the last one, Joshua Tree Music Festival in Joshua Tree, California. I think the Californians just want to hang out in cool areas, right? And they don't really care who's playing. But last comment on this is that my wife has a couple of friends. They're like adults, and they spend the summer going to these shows, and they're like, where do you get the money? These things are not cheap. You have to travel. No. This is old man in me. Where do you get the money? How do you get the time off? It's insane. And they just spend and go to 7, 8 shows. But anyway, it's Music Fest season. There's a lot of good ones out there, depending on what type of music genre you like. So enjoy, listeners. Go grab one. And if there's a particular one that you're fond of, let us know in comments, and we'll be sure to call it out on the next show.
Well, there's 3, Doug, that I love. The first, of course, is the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival in New Orleans, which is not just jazz. I mean, this year they've got Foo Fighters. Huge bands. And I went a few years ago, really had the most wonderful time. Another one in New Orleans is called Essence Fest, which happens probably at the worst time to be in New Orleans. It's usually in the beginning of July. It's hot and nasty, but the whole thing's in the Dome. So Essence Fest it's by Essence Magazine, or it used to be. I don't know if it still is. It's all R&B and hip hop. And a huge part of that is going to be old school R&B and hip hop. So all the folks that we grew up with, all the old hip hop that we listened to. And then the third one, Doug, I'm going, and I'd love for you to come with me. It's called Riot Fest. And Riot Fest is in Chicago. Huge announcement last week. They got Slayer. So they have Slayer, Metallica, Poison. I believe Motley Crue is playing, but also like really big headliner speed metal bands. And I guess it's over 3 tents. So if you want to go bang your head and get a concussion, they've got that. And then if you want more of the old school bubblegum, metal that we listened to in the 80s and 90s, they're going to have a ton of those bands too. So I'm telling you, bud, I think we should go to Riot Fest together. I'm definitely going because I don't know how many more times in my life I'll get to see Slayer. So I'm fired up.
Yeah. Hey, the one thing I was just thinking right now when we're talking, where is Lollapalooza on that list? That still goes on, right? That's been in Chicago, I think, the last couple of years.
I went to the first one, Doug, Lollapalooza, with Jane's Addiction, 9 Inch Nails, and Rollins Band. And Red, third one was Red Hot Chili Peppers. It was a fantastic time. I'd say it was in Chicago. I had such a great time. I was also 21 years old. So I don't think that I could handle that many people and that much madness all at once anymore, pal. I just think I can do it.
Yeah, agreed. We'll kick to your Monterey Jazz Festival. That's a little bit more your speed nowadays.
New Orleans. Yeah.
All right, there you go. So,
all right.
I'm going to rip it into
topic.
Yeah, you go. You go, my friend.
Oh no, you're first. Go ahead.
All right. So, Pete, I'm wondering if China is laundering inventory through Mexico and using de minimis and the 321 tariffs to skirt the system, right? It seems so obvious when you break it down, but basically China is importing goods into Mexico. They're setting up all kinds of warehouses literally within miles from the border. And when you're buying things on TikTok shop, and things of that nature, they're just cranking it across the border and entering into the parcel supply chain and getting it out there. So it caught my attention. And there are large multinational companies that are supporting these warehouse services and infrastructure. So I think it's popped up so quickly. It's happening so fast, right? With the fast casual concept, and when you're buying stuff online that it takes 2 to 3 weeks. Well, that's not in a warehouse anywhere in the United States. And so I think it's going to grow in popularity. This is right up your alley. So I wanted to get your read of setting up shop right next door, taking advantage of rules and regulations that are set by the U.S. government that are now being circumvented in an effort to basically launder inventory and not pay duties and taxes on it. So I know you have comments on this one, Pete. It is a softball that I just threw out there.
Yes. So the beady-eyed weasel in me that's a trade compliance consultant loves this because there are so many ways you can take advantage of it in order to increase profit and lower that time of delivery. You put it in a truck, cross the border into Laredo, and drop it off to the post office. It's there in a day or two. So people are getting their stuff faster. Labor is so cheap in Mexico right now. You're saving on warehousing distribution. One of the problems you have is finding warehouse space and places for production close to the border. Now, the part of me that's worried about commerce is very worried about this. So Ted Cruz and a bunch of other people actually have a bill in place to eliminate the 321 exemption for all Chinese imports. And the reason for that, we've talked about this a lot. There are a lot of these fast fashion companies and a lot of other companies who are bringing in counterfeit goods. They're bringing in stuff that's been made by child labor and forced labor. And because they can't inspect everything, this stuff slips through the cracks. So on the one hand, love it. I think it's great. On the other hand, I can understand the dangers that people are so concerned with because I've read too much and talked to many people, we all have, right, that have seen it taken advantage of, Doug. So you want to talk about a double-edged sword. This is a scary one. The more it grows. And with China putting so much money into Mexico right now, it's just a layup for them.
Yeah, it's crazy. The one thing that caught my attention there is that if you insert it into the USPS system, it's not going to take 1 to 2 days, Pete.
No? Oh, you had to be a smart ass, didn't you?
Yeah, a little bit more. If the delivery is going to San Diego, possibly. But anyway, had to get the jab in for the post office. Anyway.
I believe in the USPS. I believe.
Good deal. But I love it. This topic is going to get more and more attention, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Can the U.S. pivot enough to control it and protect themselves with duties and taxes? I don't know. Meaning, can they solve this problem in the next 6 months to a year? I don't think that's possible. But anyway, I'm sure
I don't think it's the duties and taxes, Doug, that they're worried about. I think it's the products and the safety of those products and how those products were made. That's what they're most concerned with. So, duties and taxes are a tiny part of our budget, honestly. But anyway, I could talk about this all day. I guess.
Yeah, that's surprising. That comment's surprising coming from you with the loss of revenue. But yeah,
it's true. Yeah. So my last topic, buddy, is a burner. So the terrible incident that went down in Baltimore, 2 big pieces of news come in over the weekend. The first is it's a general average claim now. Woo! Right? You want to talk about pain. So general average, for people who don't understand, it's when the vessel owner says, hey, listen, everybody with cargo on this ship, until we know what went down, we're going to hold you responsible for part of the damages and the cost of repair and all the rest of it. Wow. So they've done that, which means that the cost of that is going to be peanut buttered over everybody's cargo. So if you want to get your containers off, you'd have to put up a bond for the amount that you have responsibility. Or if you have a general average rider on your marine insurance, you're good to go. The second one, though, really blew me away. The FBI raided the vessel. So I would have loved to have seen guys on helicopters, fast roping, but it wasn't like that. They raided the vessel because it's now under an actual investigation, a criminal investigation by the Federal Bureau of Investigations. I don't have a lot of information on this, but the FBI wouldn't get involved if they didn't have some good information. So I wonder if they're holding the ship's owners responsible for what we've talked about in the past, a history of issues and a history of maintenance issues. I can't wait to find out more about this one. So I have a feeling we'll be talking more and more about this as the weeks go on, Doug.
Yeah. The general average insurance is something that nobody talks about very often because it doesn't happen, and it's a killer, right? There's companies right now
kicked in the face.
Yeah. There's executives popping up right now saying, what is general average and why are we getting screwed?
Yeah.
And the only comment I have on the FBI investigation is there has to be somebody to blame for this situation. And it's unfortunate. It's an accident, right? You did something wrong when you backed out of your garage today, right? I did something wrong when I probably went through security and you went through security to get on a plane. Things happen. But in this day and age, there has to be somebody to blame, and it'll be interesting to see how this transpires. And unfortunately, I feel somebody's the fall guy, right? Literally an individual, because everybody's going to push it off. And it's unfortunate that we have to get to this piece, but there has to be somebody to blame. And well, that'll shake out. You can't do this and then say, yeah, it was just an accident. Something's going down, an individual, a company, or somebody. And it's unfortunate that this is the approach.
Agreed, buddy.
Yeah, cool. All right, we're going to wrap this bad boy up. I'm looking at 25 minutes on our clock. I think that's a record. And Pete, I know you're in basically a room with no windows in the basement. I don't think you have hot water, but I appreciate you being here always. We appreciate our audience engaging with us. We just love doing this show every single week. Global trade this week. We'll catch you again. Please comment on our topics. We'd love to hear from our audience. So, Pete, good luck tomorrow. And it's always good to see you. So that's it, man. Take care.
See you, buddy. See you next week.